Hello, pals, welcome back. So, in this episode, you are going to hear from Sean from Georgia in the United States. Sean is an absolutely lovely guy, the kind of guy I would love to have a cup of tea with and have a really long conversation with. Now, he didn't actually have a near death experience, as far as he's aware. He took a heroic dose and more or less had an out of body experience. And the reason I wanted to include it was it's so profoundly interesting and hits all of those beats of um, one united singular consciousness. So if you watch the telepathy tapes, tick. A week after his experience, he had a UFO encounter, big tick. And this feeling of love and a fabric and connectedness being the sort of hidden component to all of reality that other people seem to come back from this type of experience with. So I thought it was really important to include. Plus, he's just such a likable guy that I thought you'd enjoy listening to him. So I hope you enjoy it. I'm not going to waste any more time. The little bit at the start is because I just spent the last sort of 5 minutes kind of introducing myself and explaining some of the stuff that had happened to me. But you don't want to hear that, so I've cut it out. So I hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you soon. 500 years ago, we couldn't talk about the solar system. You were crazy. So
Yeah,
I'm hoping that the more people are confident to talk about their experiences, like yourself,
yeah.
the more of a day-to-day scientific topic we can make it.
Amen, brother. Amen. I think the world is coming to a beautiful place where, and it seems like it's on this rapid ascent right now. Uh, and you're right. It all ties in. There is a spiritual component to all of this. It all ties in, and I'm so blessed and intrigued to have met you and to be contributing in any way because yeah, my experience was it's crazy because with the UAP thing fitting in before I found out about any of the things that I've now spend most of my life studying and researching was never ever anything that I really. I mean, I've always been in space. I've had astronaut. I mean, I've wanted to be an astronaut since I was a little bitty kid. I had a telescope since I was a little bitty kid, and then even as an adult, got a bigger, more real telescope. So I've been a seeker spiritually going. I am so blessed and I'm so grateful. I don't know what this is, but it's beautiful and I'm just so grateful for it, and I'm always seeking what is this. And I never really connected with Christianity, although I grew up in a Christian upbringing, home, and there was just this part of the Jesus story that split for me. And I've always deeply in my heart felt very close to Jesus. And I would even as a teenager tell my friends like Jesus was a cool dude, but I don't know what happened with the rest of the story. It got off track, but um, with this event that happened, this happened in July. I was just slowly getting just more inquisitive. I was starting actually to get more into aliens and a lot of the disclosures that have been coming out, leading up to this. I'm like, oh my God, this is real. I've always felt it in my heart, but now it's like all these things are confirming. And, you know, I, I- I've always been interested in psychedelics and not, I was saying as a recreation, yes, as a recreation, but more, very much more the spiritual aspect of that what that does to our consciousness and what it opens up in our consciousness. And so, um, yeah, it's crazy that the UAP thing comes into this because right after, without finding out about the CE5 protocol and any of those things, which I did do later and had success with, but even before that, weeks after my spiritual awakening, with with this psychedelic event. I have a vineyard and a winery,
Oh, wow.
and I'm an entrepreneur, and I grow grapes and make wine. And it was in the middle of harvest, and those nights are long, and we work hard, and this was my fifth year of owning my own winery. And about 2 weeks after my events and awakening, that it just brought on this, just, oh my gosh, I see now what all this is kind. And after my research, what I have found is that people who have psychedelic awakenings like this, at this level, they compare it to a near death experience. It's on that same kind of level. And so the awakening that I had is just like, oh my goodness, I now see what all this is, and what's going on. And the downloads that came into my brain, man, were just so profound and so amazing. But it was about 10 o'clock at night, and I walked over to the house to take my dog back to the house. He was out in the winery helping, be in the way. And I'm in the vineyard, and I stopped to take a pee in the middle of the vineyard, and I'm peeing. Maybe you edit that part out, but anyway, I'm going.
Sulfates are an important part of it, man. I totally understand.
That's right. I'm putting it all back where it became,
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm just paying attention to my business, and then I zip up and I turn to face the winery and start walking back, and there is a orange plasma. I've never seen a UFO in my life. Never had any kind of experience. Didn't really have any kind of thought about it ever, but I've I'll look up, and there is this orange plasma disc with like a window almost cut out of it. And I'm looking at it, and I'm going, and it's just like, for as long as I can look and go, holy crap, what in the hell am I looking at? As soon as I lock in and my brain goes, holy shit, it goes
Wow.
like a magnet. If I had a magnet on the table and I were to flip and have the opposite side and go down, and it just slide like that across the top of the table, that's exactly how it moved. It just went. And the moon was at about maybe less than 45 degrees. It was not a crescent, but not a half moon. It was somewhere in between the crescent and half moon. This was in August at some point, and it was maybe 35 degrees in the sky, and there was a glow around the moon. And as it shot off, it disappeared as far as the light goes. But I thought maybe as it went into that ring of the moon, that I would see the silhouette of it.
Mhm.
And so I waited as it went and into the silhouette of the moon, but there was nothing. There's
Wow.
no silhouette or any the moon backlighting anything. And so when I had this awakening, of course I'm freaking everybody, my whole family out, because I'm in tears. The gratitude, the love, the blessings. I mean, like, the love that I experienced in that place where I was present with God was so overwhelming. It brought me to tears when I came out of it, and I literally just cried for the next 2 weeks at the beauty and love that I felt in this place, in this experience, and so I was freaking everybody out, around me, and I'm just like, oh my God, the universe is like bound by love. That this whole thing is bound by love. And I was just so overwhelmed. So everybody's like, holy shit, and my wits are perfectly fine, and anybody who doesn't understand, psychedelics, they hear all the 60s stories like, oh, he lost his mind. It's like, it was a 4-hour event, and I went right back to being the same person, no problem. All my faculties were perfect. It was just that when you see the light, you can't not you see the truth, it's just like, this is the truth, and it is, as you probably experienced as well in your own personal experiences, to tell someone these things, it's like, yeah, you're crazy, but
Yeah.
it's kind of a lonely place. But hopefully, like you say, with these kind of things, we open people up to it. But it was amazing that, and I almost didn't tell anybody about it, because it's like, here I had this amazing experience 2 weeks ago, and now I'm seeing a UFO.
Uh-huh.
I've never ever seen a UFO in my entire life, nor did I ever think about it. And now, oh my gosh, I know what I saw. I mean, there's no taking that out of my mind. I saw it as clear as day. So it's just amazing how these things are so connected. And then in my discoveries and revelations in that experience, that led me to all these different things, like past life regression, near death experiences, and CE5 protocol with Dr. Greer. And so then I went out, and I had been meditating a lot prior to my awakening moment, and then of course after that, all I wanted to do was meditate. That's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to be in that state of consciousness. And so I tried the CE5 protocol first time, and I had four orbs fly, like, just like do like these, one almost like in a following each other, disappear. Another one would come, following behind the next one, and disappear, and then another one would come and disappear, and then the final, I'm like, I gotta record this. If there's another one that's coming, I gotta record it. And so that last one, I got a recording, and sure enough, it comes up over the tree and does the same thing. It just kind of disappears, and
I,
I got it on film, thank goodness. But
wow.
yeah, so amazing. But yeah. Anyway, I didn't mean to go off on a thing. It was just like the tie-in to extraterrestrial life, the spirituality, and all of the other things, like all the woo woo stuff that everybody's like, no, don't go there, we're gonna laugh at you. All of that stuff is more real
Yeah.
than this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Seems to be
So
the foundation. It's amazing what you say, because when I had my first sighting, and from what I've learned, your intention and um, your kind of state of mind seems to be exactly what attracts it. So for me
yeah.
in particular, it was this it was this kind of feeling of gratitude. Because I'd seen on YouTube, what triggered me off is I'd seen on YouTube these four different people, and two had been outside praying, one was meditating, and one was just on a hike, and they'd all been kind of projecting this like gratitude and then seen something. So that's what I did, and it
Yeah.
worked. And then
Wow.
and that from the people that I've spoken to, it's all been people that are really positive, like caring people. And at that
Yeah.
time when they're kind of saying, like this is amazing, or just thinking about love or compassion or something, that's when this stuff shows up. So
Oh,
there's clear correlation.
wow. That is amazing, man. That makes me want to cry. It's just
Yeah.
it's amazing. It's just amazing. And everything I'm learning about, I started reading, I don't know if you've heard of the raw materials. It's a channeling, the group that was back when it was kind of laughed at, but in the 80s, early 80s, this university group of Columbia University, I think,
Mhm.
here in the States, they really wanted to do channeling justice, and do it in a very scientific way. And sure enough, started channeling this collective consciousness raw, and basically was delivering to them the law of one, and the law of one being basically, we are one, and everything that you see is is a part of the creator, the infinite creator. And you are a spirit, you are, and then that ties into a lot of Dolores Cannon's work with past life regressions as being incarnated and developing on this ascension and spirituality, and all of it starts to make sense and connect that like these beings, these beings are advanced spiritual beings, who have incarnated so many times that they're light beings now. Some of them are in physical form and material form, but some of them were human beings at one point, but have gained that spiritual development to the point where they're moving more towards a light being, and certain planets harbor certain densities of life. And so for the Earth being a third density, now moving into a fourth density planet, we harbor up to third density level, now fourth density level beings, and then as you ascend up that spiritually, then this planet is no longer habitable for you as a spiritual developed, in that higher fourth density or fifth and sixth and density being. As you move up that level, there are other masses in the universe that where you go and have your spiritual experience, and it's just amazing, and
That's wild. Yeah.
yeah, it's just a beautiful thing. But it does start to make sense, and that Earth being this incubator for spiritual growth, and this very, 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 very special place, um, for such an experience, a very unique place for such an experience, that these Galactic Confederation or the Orion Group, and one of the things that the raw material explains is that there's polarity in the universe and free will, and one polarity is the service to others and a service to self. And because the free will is a governing kind of part of the law of one, that there's no right or wrong. It's like electricity. There's a negative and a positive, and then because of that there's a spark.
There's a spectrum. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, it's just amazing how, and so from a psychedelic tie-in, it's like, how do in a society where it has such a stigma. And I feel like it's the polarity of service to self that has created that stigma, because it allow in that service to self is a need for power and control, and you see that in the world. And so in a world of beings who are geared towards the service to self and the power and control that comes with that, um putting out narratives that keep us um under control is essential. And so you see that in the church, you see that in government, and you see that in what gets a stigma, like UFO or UAP conversations, or in your case, paranormal or psychic, abilities. That was one of the big takeaways that I experienced, is that we are so powerful. When I came out, the first thing I said is, "Oh my God, we are so powerful," and we don't realize that. And so from a psychedelic standpoint, how do we get back to a point where societies that use psychedelics to help develop their society spiritually, um we've taken that out of society, and what used to be like a gateway for most indigenous groups or ancient Greek and even early Christian Gnostic religions, points to a psychedelic component to this as a part of your spiritual path, to really say, here is the window to the world, really the true
Mm,
real world, and now go do the work, so
yeah.
anyway.
No, I agree. I was watching an interview with Dr. Diana Pazulka, who's she's a professor of religion, and she was saying that sort of the psychedelic thing is definitely like an aspect of this. but I think the missing element is the intent that goes with it. Like
Yes.
if you're just looking for essentially a sugar high and just to be off your face for a few hours, you're either going to have a negative experience or you're not going to have that kind of ascended consciousness thing. So
Correct.
in the shamanic culture or the Eleusinian and that kind of stuff where it was part
Hmm.
of the ritualistic practices, the work comes first, and it's the reverence and the intent and the meditation and getting yourself and wanting to go there to learn and to better yourself. And then that
Yeah.
seems to take you to that next level then. But that
Yes.
it again, like intention and attitude seems to be 9/10 of the primer, if you like. So
Yes.
if you don't mind,
Absolutely.
Sean, would you mind
Yeah.
telling us a little bit about your revelatory experience? Because I know a lot of
Yeah.
people sort of don't want to do they don't want to actually take the psychedelics themselves, or they're not able to. So
Yeah.
it'd be really interesting to me to hear your experience and what you've taken away with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And you're right. It is the intention, and they say set and setting is really critical, and even music is a big component we've found. And so my intent was spiritual, and I did this with some very dear friends, and it was very well planned out, and it was very clear, like there's no drinking, there's no recreation. This is a very controlled experience with the highest intent of spiritual growth. And so going into that in preparation was, just, meditation and gratitude and no expectation, really. Um, it was to have a heroic dose of five plus gram dose of psilocybin mushrooms, and divvied out, and then creating a setting. So finding a nice place where the energy was right. So here I live in the North Georgia mountains, and finding a really nice place in the mountains, nice comfortable home, and then in that home, having this sacred space where it was really blessed that this space is for this intent. And the morning was kind of a ritual. Went on a really nice walk, ran into some deer that walked right up to me. It was just, everything was so perfect in that morning. And had a laid a mat on the floor, and had some things that are near to me, just some small little tokens that brought me comfort and love and safety. And then I've created a playlist of the most beautiful music, some choral, some orchestra, some new age, but the intent there was just like moving music, that really moves your heart or brings chills to you, was really important to me. And it turns out that probably was a big, huge catalyst, was the music. And I have later found out that is a big part of it. But took the measured dose and put the music on and laid down, and had blindfolds on, and nice comfy blanket, and was with another very dear friend who I was very comfortable with. And he did not have the same experience that I had, even though we were listening to the same music, and in the same room. He was up on the bed, and I was down on the floor in the mat. And uh, although he had a great experience, it was more like a musical roller coaster ride for him. I was present with God. It was very clear where I was, and so it started out as the music and geometric patterns started to really kind of sync up, and there it was almost like the the music and it's like you feel, you see, not with your eyes, of course, but you are seeing the music in geometric patterns, and that was kind of the first experience of real depth and meaning, and as that kind of continued, the there were some moments of telepathy that started to come in where or I don't know if it'd be clairvoyance, but almost like remote viewing, where I was upstairs and the people downstairs would walk into the room. I would feel their energy the moment they walked into the house. And just by that energy, I knew who it was walking into the house. Later confirmed who those two people were. And at the same exact time that I felt them walk into the room without any audible cues or anything, I felt and knew who that was.
Hmm.
And then there was a moment in the music where it reached this absolutely beautiful and epic moment, and I was in this place with the music, and my friend was also there. And it was this just brief moment, but we were both in that same space together, acknowledging each other's presence. And after, when we came out of it, we both confirmed, you were there, I was there, we were in that place together. And so it was almost this telepathic kind of experience together, being in one place at the same time, in this field of energy, if you will. um, and then as the music kind of reached this crescendo in the experience, that's when it was just came into this level of light that was the most unbelievable love. And obviously there's no words for things like this, and it's why the Bible is full of story and parable.
Yeah.
And it's because words don't exist in this plane. You don't communicate with words, and they just don't exist, and they don't describe that world very well. So you do your best, but so um even to say that it was light, it's not correct, but it was this blinding light that you could not look away from and want to be in, and you were a part of the light. And um in that peak moment, as the music kind of reached this really epic point of back to back, just chill, level songs, is when I started to get these downloads. And it was information that I had never experienced before in my life, things that I didn't have an interest in prior to or have any study on. But it was just the most profound information. I did my best to write it down as soon as I could. But topics like metaphysics, quantum physics, epigenetics, cymatics, um, just things that I really wasn't even aware of were just downloaded fully into my mind. And I even had this moment where I was like, wow, Einstein didn't really have anything on what I have right now. I just was in this place of what I now know is this collective consciousness, this place of collective consciousness where knowledge is just there, and you tap into this level of consciousness. And so I wrote down all these things. I have my book. I can share some of those if you're interested in a moment. But several topics, just that, a few things. There's fabric that came to mind, that we're all a part of this fabric. And fabric was the word that came to mind. Later, I have heard other scientists and researchers use the word field.
Mm.
There's this collective field or whatever. I was seeing or experiencing a fabric that we're all a part of, and we all influence that fabric with our energy. And so everything that you do as an individual and I do as an individual affect this collective fabric. Um, and so that later down the road, I have started to like identify what scientists are trying to describe that as, um, the power of a human being, that we don't realize how powerful we are. The powers that we have are unbelievable, and that we're not even tapping into a fraction of how powerful we are. That was a very, very real revelation. Yeah, I'll grab my notes here in a moment, but I don't know if I gave it justice in that experience, in that experience, but it was just the love is so profound. It just it and I got this sense that love is kind of this governing piece to the universe. And what an amazing takeaway, what an amazing message to learn that what really is binding everything around us in this cosmic world is love, is just so profound, not in the cheesy, kind of hippie level love, but in a true heart, purest sense, innocent like a child level of love that you can possibly conjure is what we're made of, and what everything around us is bound by. It's pretty amazing.
I think that's what
Yeah,
dogs are made of, personally.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
They're just the perfect little mystical beings, aren't they? They just get super
Yes.
fired up and love everything, and yeah.
That's exactly right. Exactly, like a golden retriever. That's our universe is bound by the
It's
love of a Labrador.
the the
Uh,
ultimate spiritual plane is a golden retriever for sure, man.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
so I am interested, like in because the a big parallel that you touched on between kind of people that have a UAP experience or a paranormal experience is this kind of ontological shift where, like you said, a lot of people don't get it, and your own head changes. Like I've described it before as like working on a jet engine whilst the thing's in the air. It's like it's a very delicate, careful process that you've got to
yeah,
go through. So, do you mind sort of
yeah,
talking a little bit about how that's been for you? Because you've obviously been through quite a profound change in your own psyche, you
yeah.
know?
Yes, it's been very tough. I don't know that it's like on the level of a Kundalini awakening. It's a little bit like a cheater Kundalini awakening. It's almost like here's a glimpse of what you can get if you do the work, and it has spurred me into doing the work every day. The moment I came home, I realized that, and it sent me right into a dark night of the soul. And I'm, Saint John of the Cross describes a dark night of the soul through these four stages, and I'm coming into like the third stage of like, um, seeking healing and things of that nature. If you follow that dark night of the soul stages, I'm finally coming out of that really tough place, but it sent me into the dark night of the soul. And people who've known me, I am full of life. I've always been full of life. I've been fearless my entire life. I've played music, and there was nothing that was going to stop me from playing music and being successful. And I was relatively successful. I played in a band, and we gathered some rather large crowds, and we opened for some very successful bands. And when that stage of my life I felt was coming to an end, I moved on to the next thing. And it was just like nothing can stop me. There's no barriers, and so people have always known me as this, confident, humble but confident person, and this changed my life. I mean, I can't even tell you. It completely changed who I am, all my motivations in life. The Sean before this was working every day to be successful financially, to be a business owner, to grow my business to the highest level possible. Um, and none of that matters anymore, man. None of it matters anymore. And it's been a strain on my marriage. It's been a strain on, my family, my relationships with my family. Growing up in the South here in the United States, it's a very religious part of the country. Southern Christianity is runs like, very deep, and it's almost like, we just stick to these things and just because, like, kind of like over there, it's like, well, my dad likes Chelsea, and so
My son
therefore
will.
I'm gonna be Chelsea,
Yeah.
or Tottenham or whatever. And over here, it's like, well, University of Georgia or University of Alabama, and you hate the other side. Of course, you could sit and have a nice beer with them, but don't talk football, right? And so yeah, and so we just like our mom and dad love Chelsea, and so I love Chelsea, and it's kind of the same thing. We just do that, and we don't know why. We don't have a purpose in our own selves as to why, and so I just hope that we can peel that off and really encourage people to ask themselves, like, do you find your own team? You peel all those things away that you've been born with and find your own team. And it really has brought shed a light on it for me, is dealing with that phenomenon where I'm challenging people's religion, really. And I can't say, this has brought me so much closer to Jesus. And I'll tell you, I've always called myself a Jesus follower, but not really. I never really, as an adult, never really called myself a Christian. And that is so much more true now than ever before, but for more deeper reasons. Whereas before it was a logical, intellectual reason, now it's a deep spiritual reason. And so that has created a lot of trouble, for me, in that, of course, I want to preach, I want to share, and I want to bring other people to awakening, or at least help them ascend in their spiritual journey and get off that cycle, or at least open up the idea of, like, you know what, maybe Tottenham's a good team. Maybe you should think about Tottenham, or whatever, Uh, so um, so yeah, it has been a real challenge, because, one, they've seen a complete change in me, and it's been probably a little bit scary, because at first, in the first few weeks, all I could do was just, like, look at the world in total bliss and just be in total awe, and wonder and love. And I would just break down in tears and cry at, like, the silliest, what seemed to be to some other people, like, silly things. It was just like, it would bring me to tears, because you start to see all the tie-ins, all the things that we're blind to every day. They're in your face, and you don't realize, they're right there, and they're so beautiful, and they're messages that are being given to you every day. And when I finally opened my eyes and awoke to that, I'm like, oh my god, and to sit back and watch me do that, just like, oh my god, he's lost his mind, but I've found my mind. I've found myself. It's the total opposite. And to live in a world where we've all been trained to be all mind and not heart and spirit, it's really tough place to live. It's a really tough place to be. But I do feel like it's my purpose to find a way to, not demolish someone's religion, but to open up the very real human nature that we live in, and that free will is going to allow these things to happen without boundaries. And so it's up to you to decipher, because nothing's going to stop these things from happening. And so it's up to you to have to decipher. And that's the challenge that we have here on earth, is it's up to you to decipher, and there are going to be a lot of powers that are going to be very convincing, and they're going to come from the purest, most beautiful places, and they're going to be deceitful, and you're going to have to fight a lot of things that you were born into, that are going to be uncomfortable for you to ascend on this planet. It's just the way, when you come into this planet, you're coming into deceit, and it's your job to be able to rise above that and see above that. And so, yeah, hopefully that
That's
was a very long-winded answer, but
Oh, I love it. I love it. I'm really fascinated by that. There's a particular researcher called Grant Cameron, and he studied this for 50 years, and he talks about what he calls wow theory. And he says that this thing kind of appears to you in something which is like incredible, and on the individual level. It's not like a bunch of people at once, and it's very reflective of you, and it will blow your mind and like smash your old world to pieces. And the whole purpose of it is to make you kind of go, "Oh my God, like what's real? Like what
yeah,
once your world's kind of smashed apart, then you start looking around and going, okay, well that bit's useful and this is cool, but like and then you it smashes you out of that daily routine that we're born
yeah,
into, a bunch of old inherited bad code and stuff like that. I mean,
yeah,
over in the UK, most of our surnames are 500-year-old versions of somebody's job, Baker, Cooper, and all this kind of stuff. And it's like
yeah,
you're just born into it, and that's your name, and that literally defines you through your whole
yeah,
life. And
yeah,
I think our belief systems are very much the same, man. So,
yeah, yeah. Hey, we're living in such a beautiful time, man. To be alive right now. Think about our ancestors, and all the people that I used to get upset that I didn't get to see Bob Marley live. You know, But I mean, geez, look at where we're getting to experience in this lifetime, man. Like, what amazing. I mean, it's almost like daily. It's happening daily. It's only going to get even more rapid and more epic. And I think, things that you're doing, good brother, are amazing, man. And it's just is helping us all awaken, and maybe communicate with those higher beings that have ascended spiritually, who are looking on to us and going, we're your biggest cheerleader, man. You got this. That's truly what I feel is happening with these contacts that we have, is it's free will, and they know that they have to sit back and watch us destroy ourselves, because that's free will, that's the law of the universe. But there is some level of guidance, and there is some level of oversight and love and cheering, but I do feel like it's reaching this place where it's like, okay, we're gonna get involved here, we're gonna step
yeah,
in a little bit.
yeah. I think things are. It's kind of like um, it's really polarizing, isn't it? I always just say it's like oh, what's that term when you put a test tube in and it spins up like crazy,
Yeah.
to like speed up a reaction, and then like
Yeah.
the the bad are getting terrible, and then the good are really polarizing and like really, and as the old system continually proves itself that it's just not working and it's falling apart, I think a lot of people are going, okay, what else is there, and taking a fresh look at whatever
Yeah.
this is that we're all doing here, man. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
Sean, I think that's amazing. I've really, really enjoyed this. This has been fantastic. I think a lot of people are going to get a lot out of it, man. It's great.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it, man. Anything I can do to help, your work and what you're doing, and I just, I feel like we're all coming together and lifting each other up, and I can't wait to find out more about your work and everything you're doing. And I'm gonna follow and spread the word, and yeah, yeah.
Awesome.